Today we're gonna talk with Nick Tritton, 2 times Olympian and multiple medals in a lot of national championships. Not only national, so overseas. Nick, could you please tell your beginning, since what age you start, and your journey in judo?
I started when I was 10 years old, coming from a really small town in Ontario. It's actually called Lanark. We're about an hour west of Ottawa. And started in a recreational club, maybe 10, 12 people on the mat, brown belt sensei. Just really fell in love of the fighting aspect of the sport. Did my first competition, and then the rest is history. I really fell in love with the actual winning aspect of it. And my dad would always buy me the fighting films, VHSs, like 101 Ippons and stuff. And I was looking at this, and it really kind of opened my eyes to like the possibility of, actually making an Olympic run. Even at 10 years old, I had the dream of competing at the Olympics. And, I think that's where it starts.
Yeah, it's really noticeable that people are our age, growing up 19s. We all used to watch VHS movies and were inspiring. Do you think nowadays, what is inspiration for young people? What movies?
I think it's technology is both good and bad for the younger generations, in terms of access to just knowledge and techniques. And you see on Instagram and Facebook and all these TikTok reels of, highlight video throws and this and that. But I also think that it being that accessible, it kind of makes it a little less of a wow factor. Like when the Olympics used to come around, it was like, wow, everybody tuned into the TV and that's all that they watched. And now it's like, you got the Olympics, the X Games, NBA, NHL, 52 channels on TVs. You can stream it anywhere. You can be in the middle of nowhere and watching this. And so I find that, with technology, I think it downgrades the level that it's actually at. Does that change how kids react and want to become Olympians or change their goals? I don't think so, but I think just it being more accessible and more kind of in their face all the time, it doesn't give that same wow factor. So I think that might change. I was actually talking about that yesterday with Matt. How like even, at 5 years old, a kid can have a back patch and Team Canada logo on their gi. And, when I was growing up, you would see like a national team member with the Big Boss patch because they went to a European Cup, and you're like, oh, wow, that person must be somewhat good because they went overseas and competed. And that was like a wow factor as a kid. But now I can see a 7-year-old wearing the same, back patch. So I think it's both good and bad the way that things are moving forward. We'll see in the long run how it changes. I mean, try and keep kids motivated, try and keep them understanding that they have to work for their goals and not just, say their goals and watch some Instagram reels to make them a champion. But we'll see in the long run.
Yeah, it's really tough for judo compared with the UFC, MMA, because it's more wow effect in terms of maybe popularity or maybe some financial profits that athletics receive from UFC. What do you think about it? Do we need to compete with the judo, or judo it's like a classic sport?
I think judo is a classic sport, but the way that the IJF is turning it into, a little bit of profitable for the top ranked athletes, I like it. The problem that I see right now, though, is the cost that is put on the weight of the shoulders of the athletes to get overseas. That's the difficult part. I was just overseas, and I mean, we were at a junior tournament, and you know, it was relatively cheap, 120 euros a night type thing per person. But from what I've heard on the senior aspect or senior tour, you know, they're talking like $300, 300 euros per night per person to stay in a random hotel. The IJF rents out back to the athletes to make money. So it's like, yeah, they're giving a little bit of prize money, but you know, when you say like, hey, I won a Grand Slam gold medal and I got $5,000. Well, that trip cost you $5,000.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, they're headed in the right direction. But definitely doing this sport, you're doing it for the love of the sport. You're doing it for the results, being from Canada anyway, because we don't have a big sponsorship kind of pull.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I don't think we'll lose people to MMA. I think people will choose to maybe retire if they didn't quite make it far enough in the sport, or maybe when they've done an Olympic run, they might choose to then switch over to the MMA aspect of things. But I don't think the money in terms of judo wise, we're going to lose anybody towards MMA. But I think we can continue to do better and hopefully maybe get some big time sponsors for our elite level athletes. I don't think, you know, if you're a top athlete in Canada, you should be paying $1 to go overseas, you know.
Yeah, the father of 3 kids, 3 sons who are doing judo. I'm thinking about their future in judo in this sport. For example, we have a national athlete who came back to New Brunswick, and it's really tough to live outside of your parents or your family when you are young, especially to live in Montreal. You cannot afford everything sometimes without parent support, without sponsor support, maybe without federation support. And if we, it's something like a parents we have to think about for the future. And what do you think about that? Any solution of that? Because we might have a lot of kids who are really, really good, and we need to support them financially, but not everybody, not every parents can afford it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that I deal with my club. I do a lot of fundraising for my athletes. We have some great sponsors that help the athletes. But again, you know, if you have a team of, you know, let's say you have a small club like your club or like my club, and you have, you know, 10, 12 solid athletes that you're sending to nationals and this and that, you know, it would be nice, obviously, to relieve some of that financial burden on the parents to be able to fund that 100%. But yeah, 100%, you'll see people that are very skilled that you just know will not make it in the sport because they don't have the funds. And that's unfortunate because you can see a high percentage of people end up stopping or not really reaching their potential because of funding, especially in judo. Because if you look at like the Canadian circuit, just on the Canadian circuit, to travel out west, you know, 4 or 5 times a year, then to travel, you know, from out east to Toronto or Montreal, you know, another 3, 4 times a year. You know, you're looking at 8,000 probably, something like that for a 14-year-old. You know, it's not cheap. And then you have judo gis and food and all this other stuff. So it's not not an easy route.
Yeah, if we compare, for example, hockey, it's way more expensive to have kid who is doing hockey than just judo. But still, we need to have paid tickets, flight tickets, and everything. Of course, Europe has some advantages because they close to each other.
Yeah.
More athletes can do it, so we probably can travel to within Canada, maybe US sometimes, but still it costs a lot.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, why do you, in your opinion, just a couple thoughts about it. Last Olympic Games, they show a lot of good results from athletes from the Georgia, like Middle Asian countries. Obviously, they are not rich countries, but so many children's involved in this sport? And do you think why we see nowadays so huge results, so impressive results from those countries?
You know, coming in Canada, we're always focused on school. Like, I find it crazy a little bit, not that we shouldn't be focused on school, but to have a kid in a classroom 8 hours a day, and they're only going backwards on the physical education part. You know, some classes, some schools, it's like 1 hour a week that they get like their gym class.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's insane to me. It should be 1 or 2 hours a day. And in Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
these places implemented into the school system judo. So these are school programs. They do this at recess. They do this at gym class. Then they have after school programs. Then they have, you know, national programs and regional programs and this and that. So I think this is why these guys are you know, producing at a high level and with depth. In Canada, we have the luxury of having a big country with a low population for the size of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have populated, dense areas, you know, Toronto and these places. But we don't have a ton of judo in a dense area other than Montreal, really, within Canada. Well, there's a lot of clubs in Montreal. But I don't think it's a matter of that Georgia is doing anything other than practicing the sport. If we get more kids practicing the sport, we're going to have more results and deeper results and better results. And it's a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
So Georgia's doing a great job. Yes, maybe they don't have the financial resources as, you know, a big country, but being in Europe, it doesn't matter so much. It doesn't matter so much because they can travel around fairly cheap, you know. We were just, like I said, I was just overseas at the junior tournament. Georgia had a full squad. They are starting to have girls competing at a high level as well. So it's only a matter of time before they get a full squad of girls as well.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, and do you think these events like we have yesterday and today?
We're gonna circle to that sleeve. Okay, now judo it's a game, it's a chess match a little bit, especially now with the way the rules are and Judos and understanding this position. Understanding those rule sets can get you easier wins. Okay, for example, okay, me and Egan has 2 Judos, I have 1 Judo, we're in this battle. Okay, I'm gonna tell my athletes, circle the sleeve. Okay, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna circle the sleeve, Egan's gonna go this way, I'm gonna circle the sleeve.
It's definitely helps to increase level of Canadian athletes, and we can share, like judokas, we can share to each other, we can make our own duties.
Mm-hmm.
How we can increase these frequency to have these camps? So you as a coaches.
Yeah, it's, well, you know, for the longest time, you know, the East Coast really was basically shorthanded,
Mm-hmm.
basically from a coaching standpoint, right? So like you don't need to have millions of people doing judo, but you know, they had good numbers. It's just, you know, the athletes that they had were athletes, and they never really had coaches, especially like we're talking PEI and Newfoundland, you know, like who's living out there that was a high level judo, who knows high level judo. So these, you know, camps and clinics and stuff like that will help the process. But I think Canada, from an outside perspective, since, you know, I was on the national team back when I first started in 2003, 2004, now there's a great coach in BC. There's a great coach in Alberta. You know, you go through all the provinces, and every province has a solid coach now.
Yeah.
Now Malcolm's,
Yeah, Malcolm,
you know, helping out New Brunswick and
Yes.
and Otoshi. And
Okay, so what we're gonna do, pull across, and
you got a whole bunch of different coaches that are coming that, went to a certain level, and now they're starting to build up and build up and build up. But I still think there's room for improvement, and room, like I said, to get school systems and programs and things going. But we're gonna see. These definitely help out for sure.
Yeah. And despite all these issues, still Canada shows really good results, especially last Olympics.
Mhm.
Krista Deguchi, first place. What do you think? Coming back from Hungary, you posted really good reel.
They need to look at this as motivation to get back out there, travel, get overseas, train hard, and at the end of the day, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I did everything right from my nutrition, sports psychology, my weight training, my physical conditioning, my judo, working on new techniques, new tactics, having a left and right attack. At the end of the day, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I put in everything that I possibly could, every ounce of energy that I could possibly do or have, then whatever result comes from that is the result that comes from that. I will say though, talking to a couple former athletes, Olympians, that are coaching other countries now, guys, a lot of 73 kilo guys that I used to fight, talking to them, their concerns are the exact same as ours.
Can you extend it a little bit?
Yeah, I think, I've always thought this, even when I was competing, is we need to, and the team that we have now really believes in themselves. They go, hey, I can beat anybody here. And that's the mentality you have to have. So our juniors, who missed a lot of time, crucial time, basically their junior career in Europe, they're lacking a little bit of that confidence. Not in practice, though. In practice, they look very good. They look comfortable. But when they get under the lights, when they get to the game time, they look a little bit flustered, almost like, oh, okay. So they need to get a little bit more experience there. From a technical standpoint, like I had said, Canada's got great technical judo. We understand ourselves. Tactical, understanding a little bit more tactical approach on the gripping situations will be better. But in the long run, hey, it's going to be a new chapter after this Olympics. We'll see who sticks around. Does Krista stick around? Does Jessica stick around? I think Shadi sticks around for another go. Artur, does he stick around? I'm not sure. Flag, I think, is sticking around. So we'll see. Kat Bepe, I think she said she's going to retire. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see. Everybody makes their own decision. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm going to retire. You know what? I feel okay. Maybe I'll stick around. So we'll see. It could be the same team moving forward, plus some juniors coming up. You got some solid juniors with like John, heavyweight. Evelyn Beaton on the girl side in 52. That looks like she's really coming into her own in the junior circuit. Even medaled at a senior European Cup. So, we'll see what the future holds in the next couple of years. But we definitely need to continue to grow and continue to send kids overseas and get experience, because it's experience.
Yes.
They're not better than us. It's not like you go there and like, oh, wow, I'm way out of my element. No, they just get more experience because, like you said, they're in a smaller area, and they can go Germany, Holland, France on a weekend. They could go, in a circle, So by the time I drive home tomorrow to PEI, I could have went through 20 countries in Europe.
Yes, for sure.
It's a different.
It's definitely something challenging.
Yeah.
Do you think these people who are on the top in Canada, what is the chance to see them, and the athletes like your level, what is the chance to see them in our dojos, like Atlantic East
coming
Coast?
out? It's realistic. Look, these guys, I don't try and make money on these things. I come out here. Matt does a great job in inviting me out. He sets me up with, free accommodations. I bring my family. I make it a little family trip. I don't ask for much. The new generation of athletes, it's a business aspect, and I understand that. If I was getting asked to go to the States, I would charge
Yeah.
whatever I wanted to charge.
Yeah.
So it depends, really. I'm sure they could get people out. It's just a matter of, again, financial aspect of bringing them out. It's not a small thing to run something like this. It might seem like simple, throw some mats down, bring out a coach, but let's say a coach charges you, I don't know, $3,000 for the weekend. Well, you got to make sure you have enough people.
Yes.
This is where it's tricky. But I don't worry too much about that.
Okay. And about a little bit about your club. You retired, and you have five kids.
5 kids. Yeah.
You definitely need to keep them on a good level of quality of life and stuff like that. You need to feed them. So, what was your decision? Was your main decision to open the club or?
When I retired in 2012, I wasn't really planning on retiring. Just kind of things fell into place. I got into some disagreements with Judo Canada, and I just said, you know what, it's my time to hang it up. I have my kids. I got to focus on them. And for 2 years, I just kind of did random jobs. Like I was working with my dad's construction company, doing this, trying to figure out really what I wanted to do. Because again, I wasn't thinking to retire, and so I wasn't plan. I had no plan, So 2 years, I did some construction, odd jobs, this and that, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to be a personal trainer, and so I started personal training some people, and then I wanted to open a judo club, so I started opening a judo club, and then I opened my own gym in 2016. I was renting space from another facility at that time. And then, just slowly but surely, but it's been a battle. It's not easy, that's for sure. It's been a battle, because like I said, you're in Montreal. So literally there's 5 clubs within a 2-kilometer radius of me. So it's challenging for sure, and that's why I brought in the wrestling aspect. I was national champion in wrestling before, so I was like, okay, well, we'll start bringing in the wrestling, and then we have a Muay Thai program, then the personal trainers. So I have a full thing now, and now it's starting to roll and starting to be profitable for sure.
For athletes who are thinking, okay, I'm going to be national champion, I'm going to be world champion, I'm going to be Olympic champion, what next? And maybe sometimes some people, they will follow your experience. What top 5 advice you can share with the athletes who was thinking to continue sport and make money from sport for their families?
It's difficult. I would say number one thing is just be sure that's something that you want to do. If it's coaching, it's a little bit easier because of the international system we have. Like if you have a guy like Shadi, and he wanted to become a coach, and there wasn't a possibility of a job in Canada, I'm sure he's going to get picked up somewhere, anywhere in the world, but the reason why I chose to do my own thing was because, one, job security. I control my fate. So if I work hard, if I feel confident in myself, and I feel like I can build my program, then I'm okay financially. If I get hired by Judo Quebec or Judo Ontario or Judo Canada, the job security, it's not necessarily there. You could work until you're 45, and then they're like, okay, well, we're moving on. That's sport, you see coaches get fired and hired all the time. It's like, being 45 and unemployed as a coach, what do you fall back on? That's the scary part about being a coach. And, I'm sure a lot of coaches will tell you that. Like one of my all-time favorite coaches, and he runs a great program in Lethbridge now, is Yoan Beaton. And, he moved from I think he was in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and then he was in Ontario, like living in Ontario, coaching national team in Quebec, and then he moved to Alberta. So he's picking up and moving based on it, and that's not easy to do. You gotta pick up everything,
Yeah.
move your kids, go to another school, move this, go to another. So coaching on that aspect is not easy, because you gotta go where the job is, and job security long term. I think it's a little bit scary. Like I said, you could be 45 and fired, and
Yes.
now you're sitting there with your family and kids, and
Yeah.
you're not getting paid crazy money as a coach
Yes.
in Canada. Probably 60 to $80,000 a year, and
Yes. Really.
okay,
Yeah.
how much savings do you have left?
Yes.
How many years could I, and where do you go? Do you have to now, because you only speak English and you live in Quebec?
Mm. Mm.
Now you got to move provinces
Yeah.
to go get a job in what? So job security, finishing your school. I didn't go to university. I always thought I'm going to coach.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I was going to do my own thing. I thought, national team, but I'm glad that I did my own thing for sure.
And do you think the main key to get judo club profitable? What do you think?
So judo club profitable is tough. Okay, and this is what I was even talking to people. We need to make judo, and it sucks because again we talk about it not having access to everybody. You need to make it a professional atmosphere. So if you're bringing that on a individual club basis like me, not in a rec center, you're a business. You need to be able to afford to pay your coaches.
Yeah.
So in order to, and yourself.
Yes.
So in order to do that, you actually need to charge for your services.
Yeah.
Mind you, like I give parents and people discounts. There's some people that don't pay that I kind of sponsor in the club that they just can't afford to do it, and I don't want to see a kid walk away from judo, so
Yeah.
I just let them do it. And then those kids and parents are very thankful, and they're always
Mhm.
there, willing to help. Anything you need,
yeah.
let me know.
Volunteering.
Exactly. So that's good. But if you're going to be a business in judo, you have to run it as a business. You have to be able to say, hey, these are my prices, this is what it is.
Mhm.
And that's what it has to be. And it takes time, so you got to start small and just slowly build.
Yeah. Yeah. And last couple of questions before we start second day. What is your mindset you share with your athletes before competition, especially for who just start doing this?
So obviously I've changed, from an athlete to a coach. I was a lot more intense when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start to get to realize that, okay, a 12-year-old doesn't move the same way, doesn't function the same way. So, hey, let's have fun. And as we slowly start to get higher, then we start holding the athletes a little bit more accountable. But it's not for everybody at that level. You might have a guy that just, he thinks he wants to be a superstar in the sport, but he's not training like it. So I say, hey, listen, you're competitive recreational. What do you mean I'm going to go to nationals? Yeah, but you're competitive recreational because you're not training.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to feel sorry for you when you lose.
Mm-hmm.
But I will feel sorry for people. Not sorry, but I'll feel for them. The ones that are training like champions and want to be champions are showing every aspect of being a champion. And, they're just, maybe they didn't get the result they wanted. Those guys I'll feel for. But I would say, my advice that I tell my athletes is, hey, one step at a time, okay? One sequence at a time. You have to believe it. You have to see it before you can achieve it. So you have, at the beginning of the year, 3 goals, okay? 3 realistic goals, okay? Those are realistic goals. I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, are those goals realistic before the season? Ontario Open medalist, provincial champion, and national medalist. Okay, I can do that this year. I feel I can do that. And then an unrealistic goal. This is your dream goal. And this is what I tell everybody at the beginning of the year. I'm going to be Olympic champion. It could be I'm going to be a doctor. It doesn't even need to be a sport-related goal, because we're trying to build a human, not necessarily an athlete. And I've come to mature myself a little bit and understand, hey, you know what? Not everybody's going to be there. You know, before, you know, I think anybody can become an Olympian, but whether or not they believe it or they're going to put the work ethic in, you know, and I tell even my own kids this, I say, listen, like, you're not training like you want to become Olympic champion. That's fine. But I'm just going to be real with you and tell you, hey, you're not training like you want to become Olympic champion. Olympic champion stays after class and does push-ups and does ropes and, you know, stretches out and takes care of their body and goes to sleep and eats right and, you know, fuels their body.
Supplements.
Hangs out with the right people. You know, the people that you're hanging out around. Why are you hanging around with that person that doesn't have anything to do with, you know, sport and understanding that those guys, you don't need those guys. You know, short list of really good people around you, and, you know, hopefully, you know, PEI will have a, you know, Olympian eventually, and New Brunswick and this and that will have another Olympian eventually. And that's my goal, is like, hopefully throughout Canada, the higher the level, it's better for everybody.
So you think hanging around with right people, it's who is the person who advised you, like your father, your parents, your coach? Your maybe...
So like for me, growing up, like I hung out with all my friends. We were in a small town. But they all respected the fact that, hey, Nick is on a path to become an Olympian. And I always thank my friends for that, because they would always be like, hey, Nick, like you have practice tomorrow, you know, like you should go home. Like, they were good. They were really good support, and these guys still support even now my kids, you know, when there's a, you know, a fundraiser event, you have my old friends are always, you know, and I don't get to see my friends, you know, they live back home in Ontario or they're out west or anything like that. So a good, solid support system, not a million friends, 3, 4, 5 friends. That's your core group. And those guys see the same goals as you. They don't even have to be doing your sport, but they respect what you're doing and will push you in the right direction and hold you accountable for any little silly mistakes that you make.
For sure. Thank you so much, Nick. It was really interesting conversation, and we need to start our second day. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem, man.
And we hope to see you soon again.
For sure, 100%.
Thank you.